Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, and this is the watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. This is not actually a formal comparison of the reference 15510 or the 15400. It is a video about the 15510. I thought I would compare them side by side because sometimes a picture tells 1,000 words. You can easily see the distinction between them, and the dials are quite distinct. So I just thought, because I had both of them handy, I'd make that comparison, and I may casually refer to the 15400 a few other times during this video. Let's start with the basics. This watch is 10.7 millimeters thick, 41 millimeters in diameter. You can see from lug tip to lug tip, it is 50.6 millimeters, and from end link to end link, the span is 53.3 millimeters. We'll throw this watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and get a sense of how it fits. It is a massive watch. On the wrist, 237 grams, so well over half a pound. Taking a look at the watch, it's large, but it's not too big. I think in profile, because it is fairly thin with a sloped bezel, it should fit underneath any kind of a dress cuff, so no issues there. And you can see down the barrel, even on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears pretty well. I would say if your wrist is flat across the top like mine, you might get away with wearing this on a 15 centimeter wrist. If your wrist is more round, then 16 centimeters is probably going to be as small as you can go. The watch does have a lot of heft, and it's well balanced all the way around. So if you like to wear your watch loose, maybe with one extra link in, having a massive bracelet and a clasp to counterweight it can be an effective way of preventing it from moving around too much. Now, there aren't a whole lot of differences in terms of how these two measure. I will say that the biggest difference is that with the newer movement, this is a thicker watch. This is 10.7 millimeters. And then this in profile is 9.9. Well, that does not sound like a lot. It does turn out to be something you can sense. It's tangible. That said, this is still a pretty svelte watch, and it's beautifully made, as all Royal Oaks are, with the external decoration often surpassing the internal decoration, both dial and movement, by quite a margin. The sharp break between satin and polish, the super fine bevels that shrink over the mid case and expand over the lugs, the polished ends to the intermediate links, nicely executed there. A really well done setnation across the top. You can see the setnation is vertical on the sides, it's longitudinal across the tops. We have this lovely integration of bracelet case and lugs, as we've seen on all Royal Oaks with bracelets since the original, created by Gerald Genta in 1972. And the watch features individual removable links, which are fixed in place using screws, so that's the right way to do it. AP still using screws on bracelets, no pin sleeves here. We have quite a few removable links, so the sizing is not going to be too challenging. There are quite a few removable links to get this just right. In terms of the clasp, you can see it's a double fold, but it's a sequential close. One side, the side without the logo, closes first. Twin trigger release, so it can't pop open inadvertently. Move that out of the way. We have a screw-down crown and a 50-meter water resistance, which in the real world grades out to surface swimmability. So that is perfectly safe to swim with on the surface. If that were push down and 50, you wouldn't want to swim with it. The rounded octagonal bezel, originally inspired by a vintage diving helmet. You can see that the crown is hexagonal, and the white gold bolts, and they are white gold. They are also hexagonal, and you can see this is in excellent shape because the bolts are below the plane of the dial. That's how it is supposed to be on a Royal Oak. We have here the Grande Tapisserie. It is the large hobnail, not the petite that you find on the jumbo or the stamped mega that you find on the offshore. And you can see that is the same hobnail size on both. The key thing is the petite and the grand are both cut on pantograph lathes. So when you get very close, you start seeing that there are tiny divots and details, little undulations that run between the hobnails and also over the tops of them. And if you take a really careful look, you can see that all this is radially engraved by the pantograph mimicry engine, a very traditional way of making a dial, taking a large template and then miniaturizing it on the dial. We have rose gold hands, rose gold indices, and rose gold Audemars Piguet logo. Another obvious difference here that Audemars Piguet figure you don't need to overbrand. You don't need an AP and Audemars Piguet. No one needs to know that their own watch is automatic. So slimming down the amount of text on the dial and doing less but better with the rose gold logo works quite well. Let's take a look at the luminescence. Take a look at the two watches. Here's the older model. Not a whole lot to tell between them. Perhaps the newer one has a little bit more lume, but it's an easy watch to read in the dark. Taking a quick look now at the date. This is actually perhaps the most obvious change. I'll have to move that minute hand now. But you could see that aside from the reduction in the graphics and the text on the dial, which is all to the advantage of the newer watch, we do have a well, come on there. There we go. We do have a considerably bigger date window on the newer watch. Side by side in my hands, I'm usually terrible at seeing these things, and to me, it's self-evident in person. Now, taking another look at the watch, around back, things change quite a bit. By the way, if you're wondering how the clasp designs differ, the answer is not all that much. But quite a few changes out back. Here's the older 3120 movement. It's tiny. What you see right here is 26.6 millimeters in diameter, and it is a 60-hour movement with a 3 hertz beat rate. Now we're going to take a look at the newer movement, caliber 4302, now 32 millimeters in diameter, a full balance bridge, once again, and a free sprung balance once again, but now a 4 hertz beat rate and a 70-hour power reserve. Of course, hacking and quick set ceramic bearings for high efficiency winding. I would say that all things considered, the new rotor is considerably more artful than the old one, with a combination of skeletonization and internal beveling with sharp inward angles. That is a big upgrade. You can also see that it's a little bit difficult to see obliquely, but the surround of the ball bearing is a bit more highly stylized. You can see the older rotor featuring the coats of arms of the Piguet and Audemars families, to remind you that AP is, since 1875, the oldest Swiss watchmaker, continuously owned and run by founding family members. You can see that once again. Now, it is, in each case, a partially machine and partially manually finished movement. But I find that the larger size, higher beat rate, and longer power reserve of the new caliber, to say nothing of the vastly superior and more laboriously crafted rotor, is more pleasing. Now, if you love the way this watch looks, then that's the right answer for you. They're both great timepieces. And from a practical standpoint, they're mostly going to wear the same way. You could see that there are some little differences with the dials, the hands, the indices, the logos, but they're both very satisfying and representative Royal Oak ownership experiences. However, if you have the opportunity, qualitatively, this is just a little bit better. And that is the Royal Oak 15510OR.